What if one narrow waterway, just a few kilometers wide, had the power to crash the global economy? What if a single geopolitical flashpoint could send oil prices above $200 per barrel and trigger inflation across the world? That place already exists. It's called the Strait of Hormuz, and in 2026, it has become the center of a dangerous crisis. Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow route. Every day, billions in energy flows through these waters. But now, military escalation and shipping attacks are threatening to shut it down. The Gulf has become a combat zone. The Strait of Hormuz may look small on a map, but at its narrowest point, it is only 34 kilometers wide. Tonight, we begin our deep dive into the history and the strategy of the most dangerous maritime choke point on Earth. Every major economy depends on this route. Oil from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE all passes through these waters before reaching global markets. China, Japan, and South Korea rely heavily on Gulf oil. Europe depends on LNG shipments from Qatar. If this route is disrupted, prices explode instantly. The crisis escalated in early 2026 after growing confrontation. Military strikes and retaliation transformed the Gulf into a dangerous military zone. Insurance prices surged, oil tankers changed routes, some companies paused operations, vessel traffic through Hormuz collapsed dramatically. This wasn't just a regional problem anymore. This became a global economic threat that modern civilization cannot ignore. Next, we examine Iran's asymmetric strategy and why it holds enormous strategic leverage over the world's superpower. Iran understands one critical reality. It may not match the United States economically, but geographically, it holds enormous strategic leverage. The strait sits directly beside Iranian territory. Their military has spent decades preparing for asymmetric warfare, fast attack boats, mines, and missiles. Instead of fighting the U.S. Navy directly, Iran's strategy focuses on disruption. They know the world fears economic instability. For the United States, keeping Hormuz open is a major strategic priority. Washington sees freedom of navigation as essential for global stability. As tensions escalated, the U.S. discussed naval escorts for commercial shipping and increased military readiness across the entire region. Next, we examine Iran's asymmetric strategy and why it holds enormous strategic leverage over the world's superpower. While America focuses on military security, China is focused on energy survival. This creates a dangerous strategic dilemma for Beijing. China imports enormous quantities of oil through the strait. Any disruption threatens manufacturing, industrial growth, and economic stability. China wants stable energy supplies, but it also wants strong relations with Iran. It cannot allow the global economy to collapse. Europe is also deeply vulnerable. Recovering from years of energy shortages, rising oil and gas prices are now creating fresh panic. When energy prices rise, governments become unstable. Public anger increases, and the world learns that oil shocks spread everywhere. Finally, we look at the worst-case scenario, a total shutdown of the strait and the trigger for a global economic collapse. Now imagine the worst-case scenario. The strait closes completely for weeks or months. What happens next? Global oil supply drops sharply. Then comes the second wave. Stock market panic, currency instability, manufacturing slowdowns, and rising unemployment. The world is financially fragile. Could this trigger a global recession? The answer is yes, if the disruption becomes prolonged. Modern economies are interconnected. A shock in the Persian Gulf affects shipping in Asia, fuel prices in Europe, manufacturing in China, and transportation in America. Everything is connected. Markets hate uncertainty. If investors believe the crisis is uncontrollable, financial panic could spread rapidly through every government. Finally, we look at how strategic choke points are being used as weapons in a defining geopolitical confrontation of this decade. But this crisis is about more than oil. It reflects a deeper transformation happening in global geopolitics. Power competition is intensifying. Major powers increasingly view strategic choke points as weapons. These are no longer isolated crises, but parts of a larger global struggle. For decades, Hormuz was an energy lifeline, but in 2026, it has become a pressure point capable of shaking the entire global economy. The question now is not whether this crisis matters. The question is, how far could it go? The consequences reach every country on Earth. Because sometimes, the most dangerous places in the world are not the largest. They are the narrowest. Subscribe to 24 Hours Focus for more deep dives into global conflicts and the power struggles shaping the future of the world.